Hi guys, Asmo here, and today I have for you perhaps the most important video that you will ever watch about Path of Exile 2. Those of you who will watch the whole video and start applying what you learn will transform from players who struggle to get currency in PoE 2 into players that know exactly how to get the currency for whatever they want. And yet, most of you will still not do it. Most of you will have excuses, try to argue, and would rather follow the ideas of other poor players who are lying to themselves and trying to blame the system and maybe even become one of the degenerate losers that RMT. Because the truth is, you probably have never taken the subject of making currency in PoE seriously. If you have, you wouldn't need to watch this video. And in fact, if you know how to earn a mirror in a few days, you don't really need to watch it. But if I told you to earn a mirror by the end of the week and you're not confident that you could do it, this video will put you on a path to change that. So if you're willing to actually learn, I would encourage you to drop all of your preconception for just a moment and try to listen with an open mind. And in return, I promise that what you will learn in this video will transform how you look at making currency in PoE. First, let me briefly tell you why you should listen to me. Because you wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable following diet advice from an obese person, and in the same way you shouldn't follow currency generation advice from people who struggle to generate it in PoE. A lot of what I'm going to tell you draws from thousands of hours of PoE 1 experience. In the most recent league start in PoE 1, I've had 2 mirrors on day 4 of the league completely solo. I have assembled and sold characters worth multiple mirrors before. I'm always able to get a headhunter or a mageblood in the first few days of the league, and I've made my currency through farming specific league mechanics. I've made a mirror in just 4 days of regular mapping, but I've also done 0 to hero challenges where I make over 100 divines without finishing the campaign through flipping and crafting, and it's all documented in my videos. Right now in Path of Exile 2, in the Dawn of the Hunt League, I have a well-geared meta character, a lightning spear wind serpent deadeye with over 100 div worth of gear on it, over 100 raw divines in the stash, foil headhunter with 3 charm slots, over 1,000 items for sale including good rares worth multiple divines, hundreds of pre-rolled maps with instilled emotions on them ready for farming, hundreds of tablets including top rolls of specific modifiers that I've set aside, such as XP tablets and XP maps for leveling, hundreds of essences, runes, catalysts, twink leveling gear, and more. I have everything I'd ever want to engage with any part of the game. I even started buying swords and flails that aren't even officially added to the game yet, just for fun. And right now, some of you, maybe who have caught a glimpse of some of the items, might have the impulse to say, but Asmo, this item is not worth that much. And if you are one of those people, then you need to learn about the concept of... Let me give you an example from this league. On the first weekend, when people were finding the new uniques and they were being added to the PoEDB, I've spent a few minutes reading through them and seeing if any of them had potential to be really good in any conceivable build. I have a large amount of experience and a very broad understanding of the game, so it's relatively easy for me, but anyone can learn to find patterns that connect build enabling uniques, but this is perhaps a topic for another video. So let's get back to what I actually did. I looked up these items on trade. A couple of them were really expensive already, so I ignored those, but most were dirt cheap. I bought the really cheap uniques for 1 to 5 exalts, focusing on items with the highest rolls of the relevant modifiers and the items with the lowest supply. I bought like 20 of these items for around 40 exalts each, and I just put them in a stash tab priced at 1 divine without checking the price. And within a week, I sold about 4 or 5 of these items from this tab, and I can resell the rest for even more profit if I bother checking their current price. So I took a few minutes of my time and I leveraged my game knowledge into 5 divines. But now you might have an to say, Asmo, I don't have 40 exalts on day 2 to spend on some random investments that I'm guessing they might pay off. I need to upgrade my build, otherwise I cannot progress the Atlas. And then I could say,
why the fuck is your broke ass questioning the methods that got me rich? If you don't have the currency, you're wrong and I have the currency, so I'm right.
But that wouldn't be very productive. So instead, let me explain the concept of the... At the beginning of each league, everyone is trying to do the same thing, establish their build. What do they need? They need movement speed boots, they need a decent weapon, they need build enabling uniques for the meta league starter builds, they need greater and perfect jeweler orbs. Everyone wants the same things, but no one has farmed them yet, which means that the supply is the lowest it will ever be, and the demand is the highest it will ever be. That means that these items will be the most expensive in the first few days of the league as people establish their builds, and later when they sell their items, they will become depreciating assets, meaning that they will get cheaper and cheaper over time. Keep that in mind. Now, the exact opposite happens with the high-end items, things like timeless jewels, uniques for builds that are not league starters, high-end crafting currencies. Nobody's buying these early when they are struggling to upgrade their builds, but in the first week of the league, the player numbers are the highest, which means that some of these things will have the highest supply that they will ever have and the lowest demand that they will ever have, which again means that they will be cheap early and then keep increasing in price as the league goes on. Identifying which items belong to which category is part of learning about the game, and the better you get at it, the more currency you can earn and save, because the good players who play expensive builds very often know ahead of time which items they will need, and they buy them before these items skyrocket in price. But the bad players will only follow the meta, always buy things when they are at the most expensive, so you do benefit a lot from doing things your own way and also learning about the game for your own purposes. This is also why it is well worth looking for currency making strategies that do not require a strong build early on, can be done in lower tier content or even without killing monsters at all, and you can start building your wealth or investing in items that you will need later. I'll give you another example of what I did this league. On the first weekend, fracturing orbs were sold for 3 to 4 exalts, and there were hundreds and hundreds of them available. I started buying them until I've had like 120 of them. I understood their utility and I knew that it is worth more than that. And now they are worth 30 exalts each. I made almost 10 times my money. And I know a lot of you will have a mental block, a little voice in your head that tells you, what if it doesn't go up in price? And how can I know what to invest in and when? Fixing that mindset and the approach to currency making is not easy, but one thing that can really help you with it is understanding the most important thing, the number one thing, the single thing that will help you make more currency than anything else. And it's not having a good build, it's not following the best content creators, it's not mapping the fastest and in the most efficient way possible. It's actually game knowledge is by far the most important thing when it comes to making currency. It's the only vector of currency acquisition with infinite scaling. There is a limit to how fast your character can be, there's a limit to how fast you can enter and clear maps, how fast you can go from one task to another, but there is no end to how much you can learn about the game, especially because of how complex it is and how often it changes. Most players go from content creator to content creator and search for the highest div per hour strategy, but that is not the knowledge you should be seeking. You need to read the items, look at builds, read passives, read atlas points, read the wiki about the things that you don't understand yet. Obviously, it's a video game, and if you want to relax and have fun, you don't want to do so much learning, you can play it however you want. But if you want to make currency, and if it's at all aligned with your goals, learning more about the game is the best investment you can make, and there is no better time to start than now. I highly recommend having something like a Google spreadsheet or any other place where you can write down your observations, write down interesting strategies you'd like to learn later so that you can come back to them and dive deeper. Accumulate these strategies over time and grow your arsenal of farming, crafting, and flipping strategies that you have at your disposal. As you learn more and gain experience, everything will come to you easier. Let me give you an example and also break one of the other myths that is implicitly perpetuated by the community. Divines per hour is fake. It's a fake number.
You are fake news.
The richest players, they don't really know how many divines per hour they're making. They just know that at the end of the day, they are 50 or 100 divines richer as a consequence of their earlier actions. The only people obsessed with divines per hour are the people who refuse to get better and instead want to be spoon-fed currency, so they are looking for the biggest spoon around. They will never get as much as advertised anyway, and here is why. Let's say you follow a streamer who streamed for like 6 hours, and he told you that he made 60 divines in that time, and his strategy is therefore 10 divines per hour. He probably tailored this build to the strategy perfectly. He probably bought all of the supplies for the strategy while they were dirt cheap and nobody was doing it yet. He probably knows a lot of little things that you are missing because he thought of the different ways to take advantage of this strat and has experience with it. He probably stayed logged in for hours after the stream, selling things off, and didn't include that in the time spent. He probably picked up good unique bases that he knows he can corrupt and make some extra currency from the well-rolled ones. He probably also saw a lot of rare items and improved them through the right crafting methods to make a lot of currency from them. Just copying somebody's XDiv per hour strat will not teach you any of this, and the only way to free yourselves from the fetters of meta slavery is through game knowledge. Before I move on to some practical tips and advice, I need to be brutally honest with you, and I want you to also be honest with yourself. Do you actually want to make a lot of currency? Like, is that one of your... In this video, I am assuming that you want to learn how to make more currency, but not everyone does. Some people just want to have fun the way they like, and that's completely fine. But you cannot say that you want to eat 7 cheeseburgers, 2 pizzas, and 4 bags of chips daily, while at the same time saying that you want to lose weight. That's cognitive dissonance that you should recognize and resolve by deciding on only one of the 2 mutually exclusive goals. If you want to kill monsters and pick up exalted and divine orbs from the ground, that's fine, but don't think that making currency is your priority if you're not willing to do what's necessary to accomplish it. If you never touch crafting, flipping, never learn to price check, never read the game mechanics, never try to find your own solutions to the game problems, and never force yourself to learn more about it, then you're not even trying. And with that out of the way, let's move on to some more. The first tip I can give you is to list everything. Stash tabs are effectively pay to win. Having enough stash tabs to list everything you find that has any real value will allow you to make much more currency. You can price your gem tab, unique tab, map tab, essence tab, quad dump tabs where you drop everything before sorting it, random items that you're holding for later. Everything can be priced. You can price tabs for amount that is high enough that you're not being spammed, but if you accidentally find something valuable that ends up in one of these tabs, someone will message you for it. You're outsourcing the price checking process and letting the demand for the items inform you about their value. The second tip is to learn how to price check. Get the Exiled Exchange app and learn to use it. Experiment with its functions. The more you use it, the better you get at it. This is a big theme that you might notice really soon, because almost everything I'll talk about will be harder in the beginning, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. So do not ask other people to price check for you, because you're robbing yourself of very important learning experiences. The best way to learn how to price check items is to price check more items yourself. Just like the best way to learn how to craft is to craft, and the best way to learn how to find good items is to search for good items. So some items are easy to price check, but some will require that you go to the trade website and look at other items on the market. Try to evaluate similar items and see if your item would be more or less desirable to other players. And always try to put yourself in the shoes of the buyer. For example, 39 fire res and 40 fire res are only 1% apart, but that 40% will look much more appealing to most players, and many of them will search specifically for items that have at least 40% on them. So learn what people like by listing items and then noticing what sells. And whenever you are buying something yourself, take note of how you searched for that item. Many other players are probably doing it the same way. And the sooner you start building your experience in this area, the more money you'll make in the long run. Use the live searching function. The live search function is great for people who know what they want. Be that person. Be someone who has a plan. If you know you're going to run a certain strategy or make a certain build later, set up some searches ahead of time and snipe the cheapest items you can. If you live search, you'll have access to the best deals available, but they are not available on demand because the cheapest deals disappear from the market the fastest. So if you want the access to the best priced items for you, you have to learn how to use the live searching function. And like I said, the more you use it, the better you'll get at it. Most players also have much more currency than they realize. They just don't know how to liquidate properly. So turning everything you can into raw currency like exalts and divines so that you can have more of it available for trading is a very valuable skill to master. You can use a list, you can go tab by tab. I try to develop some kind of a system system for yourself. You can use the trade website, the Forbidden Trove Discord, any other community you're a part of, and you can sell things in bulk. And you should also read the About page on the trading website to learn how to sell things in bulk directly from your stash tabs. Learn how to liquidate efficiently so that you can use the currency that you have already farmed. And learn how to craft. I know, easy to say, right? Because crafting is one of the most complex systems of the game, and I wouldn't be able to even scratch the surface in this video. But I'll try to do something more useful. I will dispel another massive misconception. If you read the forums, Reddit, or listen to popular content creators, you will often hear this repeated all the time, and it
pisses me off
because it's an obvious lie and a massive cope that people use to excuse their ineptitude. Things like, there's no crafting in PoE2, crafting is just gambling, recombinators are useless, you cannot craft your own gear. It is absolutely necessary to close your eyes and deny reality if you want to believe any of this nonsense. How come there are people who do deterministic crafts? How come there are people who profit crafted their way to a mirror? How come there are people who have made hundreds of divines of profit crafting only with recombinators? This is all just nonsense that people believe to try to explain why they're poor. Stop following and looking up to players who make excuses and blame the game for their failures, and instead look for solutions yourself and also try to learn from other players who have found some of these solutions already. Every single league, without exceptions, and whenever the next league starts, you can remember that and check, because this will happen. The player base at large fails to properly utilize the new tools added to the game in the first few days, because it takes time for the community to analyze and learn how to use them and find effective strategies. Yet you have the most ignorant players that are being also the most vocal, acting as if they tried everything and claiming that the new tools are useless. And then people who don't know any better just follow them for some reason. In the first weekend of the Necropolis League, the Reddit was crying that the graveyard crafting mechanic is useless and you cannot make anything good with it, while someone was literally printing 61 weapons, 4 of them at a time, using this exact mechanic. So remember, new things that people haven't learned to use yet are very often very undervalued. But how do you actually craft in PoE2? One of the best ways to learn entry-level crafting is through utilizing something like a boss farming strategy that I shared recently, which generates a lot of rare items. And the funniest thing is, that just shows how wrong the public opinion about this stuff is, when I showed the insane loot I got from these bosses, there were comments saying, "Damn dude, all that investment and all you get is 3 exalts from the boss?" Because these people don't realize that most of the money that I made was from the rare items, which were dropping with item level 82 and with very high tiers that gave them better modifiers on average. Then I took these items and evaluated them one by one, and it takes very little time for me to see whether an item has potential or not because of my game knowledge, but even if it takes you a whole minute of price checking and researching, it will be still worth it because you need to learn that at some point eventually anyway. I then slammed lots of exalts and used lots of chaos orbs on the right items and finished sellable crafts with runes and quality currency. I know this is all a little bit abstract, so let me show you a couple of... I saved a quad tab of like 10 bosses worth of loot just to teach you how to evaluate items. The first thing we need to do is to look at the base, see if it's good and what can roll on it. This is something you're gonna learn with experience, and you can also look at websites like PoEDB or Path of Exile in order to check specific bases and see what are the possible modifiers that you can get on them. Then we look at the item level. So item level, when you hold Alt, the 82 is the breakpoint for most of the best modifiers. So that's ideally what we want to aim for. The other item levels, of course, are different breakpoints for different modifiers, but 82 is like the top breakpoint for like the highest movement speed, the highest resistances, some of the highest modifiers for damage and life as well. So 82 is like the ideal one you want to aim. And then also we have the tiers. So unidentified rare items will have tiers, ranging from tier 0 or tier 1 up until tier 5. And of course this balances against the other ones. So the worse the base and the worse the item level, the lower the item level, the higher the tier has to be for the item to be really worth checking out. And of course the lower the tier, the better you want the base to be and the higher you want the item level. So I'm going to identify a bunch of these items and we're gonna see if there's anything good here. I'm gonna simply do this as a demonstration. I know there might be nothing good here. there might be something, but I want to explain to you when I use Chaos Orbs, when I use Exalted Orbs, when it is generally worth doing. So I'm just going to identify here everything, and then we're going to look at a bunch of these items. These are just like tier 3 to tier 5 rares that I got from my boss farm. You can check the link in the description if you want to see more about that. The boss farm is a really nice mechanic to learn this method, learn more about items. So let's look through these items and see if there is anything worth even looking at. So here we have the first item, which is like an Avian Tiara. It has some energy shield, life, rarity, and chaos res. So I know that this rarity will probably be okay, this is a prefix in fact, so it has 2 suffixes open, which is even better. This could be really nice, and this is what you definitely want to slam with exalts. This already has a couple of decent modifiers. Life on energy shield helmets is actually pretty good, and that is something that comes with game knowledge, because a lot of people are using this passive, which gives you evasion rating per 1 maximum energy shield on equipped helmet. So actually helmets with energy shield and life are desirable. This also has a rarity on a prefix, which is very nice. We can hit even rarity on a suffix. This has chaos res, which is one of the most important resistances that everyone wants. So this is already a good item with some potential for improvement. This is item level 82, so it can roll the best resistances. So I would definitely exalt that. The general rule for exalting would be that you want to exalt items that are worth at least as many exalts as you're going to use. So if an item is worth 2 exalts already, you can sell it for 2 exalts. It is worth slamming 2 exalts into it. If the item has potential to become much better, then it's also really worth, right? Like if you have some kind of a pair of boots, I don't know if I can find one here, but if I find boots that have really good suffixes and no movement speed on the prefix, they are virtually worthless, right? Nobody wants movement speed boots without movement speed. But if you hit the movement speed, then if the suffixes are really good, or just like other modifiers in general are really good, and you can hit the movement speed, the value of the item can increase by a lot. If let's say you have 1 in 100 to hit the modifier, that will increase the value of an item by 200%, then it is worth doing, right? You're basically doubling your money every time you click that button. So learning about, the better you understand the items and the possible odds and the potential value that the item can get and the probability of hitting them, the better you will do. So let's slam this item and see what we get. So we got some fire res and we got some cold res. This is an item that I would also use the Artificer Orb and Greater Iron Rune on. And why would I do that? When these things are so cheap, they are very much worth using because they increase the base stats. If you look at a helmet, this one has 93 energy shield. People might be searching for, okay, I want helmet that has this much res, this much life, and this much energy shield. And if they type the energy shield to be 100, now your helmet doesn't even show up, right? So I'm gonna spend, this is like 1/6 of a chaos, and this is like, 2/3 of a chaos or something, and we hit the 110. We can now price check this item. We price check it with the Exiled Exchange, and we can see here that this is going to be the life, just looking at without the energy shield at first and looking at just these resistances specifically, it's like 1 divine. If we look at the rarity as well, that's going to be also 1 divine, so there is one. If we look at energy bases specifically, there is nothing available. We could go to the trade website and look further, but I can just put it into the 2 divine tab and I'm happy with that, right? This could be worth 2 divines, this could be worth 3 divines, this could be worth 1 divine. It could not sell at all, but this is already like a decent item that we got, that someone will want. It will be in somebody's price range. You could also use the quality currency, right? So like armor scraps and blacksmith whetstones, but typically I use these if I don't hit some kind of a good breakpoint with the base stats, right? Let's say I put the rune and the item is still at 97 energy shield or something, right? Or it's like 197 energy shield. Then I will quality it up so that it appears much better than it actually is, even though you can sort on the website through the amount of base stats the item would have if it was qualityed. The website allows you for that. But I'm gonna do this regardless, right? But this item could go to 131, 110, 131, not that big of a difference. I'm not gonna bother spending these quality currencies, which will be a little bit more expensive, right? So this is just what I would do with this item. We can look at further items, right? We can see if there are any boots, right? Let's do boots, okay? Let's see if we got any good boots. So these boots already trash, right? These boots trash. There's nothing really good on them. sometimes boots will come with, for example, only movement speed, right? Let's see if I can find only movement speed. Okay, we have here some potential boots. Let's see if there's like only like 35% move speed boots or something like that. Okay, these are really good boots as well. Life, mana, double res, no movement speed, triple res. What else do we have here? Strength, cold res. Okay, so if you, for example, happen to find boots that are like the opposite of these, they have only one good modifier or any other item that has just one good modifier, let's say like 35% movement speed, and it's on a really good base, right? Let's say it's like on some kind of evasion energy shield base that is like one of the highest bases. That's a great candidate for a Chaos Orb, because you are more likely to reroll one of the bad mods, and if the item is high enough item level like 82, you are also relatively likely to hit some of the good mods. So you can chaos it a few times, and maybe you can get like 2 decent mods, and you spend like 20 exalts on that, but the item will now sell for a divine, right? So this is a type of an item that would be worth using chaos. This is not worth using chaos. This is simply just like a mediocre pair of boots that is worth to simply exalt slamming and nothing else, right? So we slam a couple of exalts. We were hoping for life or something like that. Instead, we got mana. We can also put the rune into it because it's not really that expensive. These runes are really cheap, and then we can just look at what this pair of boots is worth with the resistances, and then if we ignore the armor and energy shield base with just movement speed and see what that's worth like 10 exalts. If we look at mana as well, that's still worth like 19 exalts maybe, right? I will put it into this tab and I'm happy with that, right? Maybe it will sell, maybe I'll put it into the 9 exalts, but it's still something that we found. Earlier on in the league, these will be worth more. The later the league goes, the cheaper these like mediocre items are, right? And that's basically how you go through everything. You can look at weapons, right? And see if you have any good modifiers. Sometimes you will have items that have 4 modifiers, and one of these modifiers is going to be really, really good, right? Like let's say you had here +5 to all minion skills or something like that, and especially if you have like 2 good modifiers on items, sometimes these items will be then worth fracturing, right? Like I sold 2 weapons that had like merciless physical damage roll modifier that is very high, and things like that are very, very good to try to fracture as well, because the item with this really high modifier fractured will sell for a lot of currency. Let's see if there's anything else that is decent here. This is like a decent glove, right? We can exalt slam that as well. You can see this item has high life, high mana on an energy shield base with a couple of mediocre resistances, but if it gets another good res and like an energy shield roll, this could be a decent item, right? So we get attack speed and cold damage to attacks. So not the best. If I price check this item and look at like attack speed with these 2 resistances and life on any base, that is 40 exalts or maybe 1 divine. If I look at it with the mana, then that is, there is nothing available like that. If I look with energy shield, then that is 2 divines or 3 divines, right? So we can maybe put it, I would say like 1 divine tab is where I would put it, but you can put it into 2 divine tab for now, and then put it into the 1 divine tab later after it doesn't sell after a day, which I think this wouldn't probably sell for 2 div, but it probably will sell for 1 div at some point. And what else do we have here? Let's see. Do we have any weapons that are good? So far, I don't see any like good weapons. We have some mediocre rolls, 120. Okay, we have a ring. Jewelry is very nice. Even you see this didn't have any tiers, but jewelry is very nice to get, because simply there is so little of it dropping, right? So even if you have something like this is a great belt that has a really high potential, because as you can see, like without pressing Alt, I can see it has 3 resistances and 2 other modifiers, which means it has an open prefix, so it can hit life. It doesn't have 3 charm slots, but even without that, if we hit life, this could be a very good belt. And I hit charm effect duration, so that is terrible now, right? This is, we can price check this still. If it has this much resistances, it's like 20 exalts. I could try to chaos that, right? This is something that you could potentially try doing if you like need 1 modifier that could insanely elevate the price of an item, because you have already a lot of different modifiers. You could try to chaos that, right? And I got 116 life, so now we went from a 20 chaos item to, let's see, with this life we have 1 divine item, right? So this is what you want to use your Exalted Orbs on. This is of course a little bit lucky, right? Because I rerolled modifier that we don't really need for the best modifier that I can get, and it is a decent enough tier that it is now a wearable item for someone who just needs like a basic belt with some life and chaos res. So that is basically how I go about crafting these basic items and making sure that whatever I find, I can elevate the value of it and make actual currency. And this was just a very simple example, but hopefully it illustrates the basic way to evaluate items in PoE 2. The final piece of advice I will give you is to, of course, have fun. And remember that this is just a game. You can go hard and pursue your goals, but you can relax also and play the way you want. And remember that it's not that serious. Doing things the way you actually enjoy counts for a lot, and try to not compare yourself too much to other players, because the best person to compare yourself to is you from the league before. If you walk the path of improving your knowledge and trying things out to grow your experience, you will get better and better at it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video if you've learned something new, and I'll see you guys next time.